Alright, chapter 4.2 is about patterns and linear functions. There are two types of patterns or functions in this chapter that we're going to be looking at. A linear pattern that has a consistent rate of change, as we learned yesterday, whenever the difference between the numbers is the same. And it looks like a line. Again, that's where the linear part came from, L-I-N-E. We also have a nonlinear pattern, which has a varying rate of change and a sort of curve or some sort of turn or something that makes it just not a line. So anything that's not a line is nonlinear, and then anything that is straight is linear. Today what we're going to do is focus on linear patterns. Tomorrow will be, or the next lesson is nonlinear patterns, but more importantly we're going to focus on identifying and generating a rule for the patterns. The essential question is, why is it important to identify patterns? Well, in order to master the skill of analysis that we've been talking about that you're going to need, it's important that you're able to anticipate what's going to happen outside of your own visible window. What that means is there's certain things that you can see for yourself. For example, let's say you had a job and the first 4 days you earned $5 the first day, $6 the second day, $7, then $8. There is a pattern there. As you can see, you're increasing by 1, increasing by 1, increasing by 1. You should have the ability at some point to determine how much you'll make on your 15th or 55th day if that pattern continues. That is, if you want to be able to do the analysis necessary to do well in math. The point of this lesson is just finding the pattern rule. Again, I'm sure that this example doesn't really mean much to you, but again, there are things where there are patterns and you want to be able to kind of look ahead and say, you know, after this many days that's what's going to go on. So again, the point of this is just pretty much finding the pattern rule. So everything we do from here on this lesson is going to be about creating that rule. We used the word rate of change. That's the word we learned yesterday to describe how a function is changing. We talked about rising, falling, or flat with the slope of 0. A positive slope was going this way, a negative rate of change, positive rate of change going that way, negative rate of change going that way, 0 rate of change going that way. We're not going to use that full part to denote rate of change. Instead, algebra uses the letter M to denote rate of change. Finding M is easy enough using basic subtraction. So if you were to look for M for this problem here, and it's a table, first thing you got to recognize is X is your independent variable. That's what runs everything. That is your horizontal axis. So X goes sideways. Y is the one that goes up and down, if you remember that. And all you have to do is, as long as this is moving by 1, so notice it's 0, 1, 2, 3, all you have to do is say 6 minus 2, which is plus 4, and then 10 minus 6, which is positive 4, and then 14 minus 10, which is also positive 4. You might want to even write it the way that I wrote it there on your notes so you understand how I subtracted. A lot of people do 2 minus 6, 6 minus 10. That's not right. In order to maintain the direction, you want to do second minus first. So again, the M for this, because it's 4 all the way through, would be 4. So again, your slope, your rate of change would be 4. If you had a set of ordered pairs, remember ordered pairs, just any, actually all those are ordered pairs also. 0, 2 is an ordered pair, 1, 6 is an ordered pair, 2, 10, 3, 14. But if you had a set of ordered pairs, you would do the same thing. But again, notice your X's, which is always first, is still moving by 1. So 1 goes to 2, to 3, to 4. That's important to analyze first. Now what we do is say 11 minus 4, which is 7. And then do 18 minus 11, which is also 7, and then 25 minus 18, which is still 7. So for this one, your slope, your rate of change is 7. You do not need the plus, but again, that's a slope or a rate of change of 7. The key thing to remember is that you will always do second minus first in the table, or in the ordered pairs. You always do second minus first. Again, 11 minus 4, 18 minus 11, 25 minus 18. Don't flip that around, otherwise it's going to cause you a lot of issues. Plus, it'll help you out before we get to chapter 5 and start actually officially finding the M value for a lot of different ways. Sometimes finding M can be a bit tricky if our X isn't stepping by 1. So notice here when we go to do our check, that's stepping by 2, by 3, and by 4. So that's not really going to help us, but it's not bad as it would seem. You still do the same thing over here. So you do 9 minus 3, which is 6. It's just that you now also subtract this, which is 2 minus 0, or 2. And so what you do for your M in this case is you do 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Again, 6 overall steps, Y chain 6 steps in terms of X taking 2. so you turn that into a unit rate. Same thing here. 19 minus 9 over here, which is 10. I think that's messed up. Hold on real quick. That should be... This should be 18. Sorry. Fix that on your notes too. So that should be 18 minus 9, which is 9. And then over here, you do 5 minus 2, which is 3. And again, you have this over here changing by 9 over the course of that taking 3. Again, there's your 3. And over here, you should have, I think I messed up there, that would be 30. But again, 30 minus 18, which gives us 12. Over here, 9 minus 5, which gives us 4. And when you do 12 over 4, you notice that you still get the answer of 3. And so this is going to be the type of problem that you have to look out for. Sorry for making the mistakes on the table. But this is the type of problem you have to look out for, because if your x is not stepping by 1, you actually have to divide. Now looking back, you did divide, you just don't ever have to really divide, because if you look at that, that took 4 steps. That took 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4. That took 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4. 4 divided by 1 is 4. So you don't really have to divide when you step by 1, because dividing by 1 doesn't do anything. But when you're stepping by more than 1, make sure you divide this by however many steps that you took to get there. Alright? The important thing to remember is that m determines everything in your linear function, so you must know how to find it. You have to make sure you do the job necessary today to get there. Otherwise, it's going to be a very tough lesson, and things are only going to get worse after that. Another important piece of today's work is memorizing the following formula. We are going to learn it formally in chapter 5, but it's easy enough to work with. So the rule generating formula is y equals mx plus b. I believe there's a blank there for you to put right there for yourself. But again, the rule generating formula is y equals mx plus b. We know that y is the right side of the table, which is this side. We know that m represents rate of change. We know that x represents the left side of the table. So even if this was people and hours, whatever is over here is y, whatever is over here is x. But again, y equals mx plus b. Again, we'll talk about what b represents more in chapter 5. But the general idea you need to understand is we have to be able to find b using that formula. So this formula has 4 variables. Our job again is to use the known values to identify the unknown value. Alright, so if we're looking for b, I'm just going to cut off all that stuff, because all we need in order to use the formula y equals mx plus b is one value of y that corresponds with a value of x. And so all you have to do now is plug in what you know. So take your y, turn into 7. M we know to be 2. X we know to be 1. And then we go from there. Now you just use the algebra you learned. 7 equals 2 times 1 turns into 2 plus b. To get b by itself, we subtract 2. We end up with the value of b being 5. Alright? So again, it's easy enough to do. You just have to make sure you write that formula out. Plug in your parts, plug in your y, plug in your m, plug in your x, plug in your b, and then everything else will take care of itself. Alright? You only need one ordered pair and m to find the value of b. So if you were looking back at this table, you could use y equals 3 with x equals 0. Or you could use y equals 9 with x equals 2. Or you could use y equals 18 with x equals 5. Or you could use y equals 30 with x equals 9. But you cannot mix these things. You have to go with whatever the ordered pair is. But again, you only need one in order to do that. Alright? And the rule for the function is found by substituting m and b back into the formula. So back in this case, if you were to do the rule, you would put your y equals mx plus b, but you substitute m, which is 2, and b, which is 5, back into it. And if you check it out, 2 times 1 is 2 plus 5 makes 7. And that's what your rule should do for you. It should give you the ability to plug in your x and find the value of y that goes with it. So 2 examples real fast before we get ready to close out. This is really all your whole lesson is building you up for. So there are some questions that do different things, but all of them revolve around these 2 questions that are here. And you'll see it written in 2 different ways. Somebody will say, or one question will say, represent the relationship using an equation. In other words, they want an equal sign, something that tells me what's going on. And so what you want to do there is, again, same thing. We have to identify m, and we need a point. And so in order to identify m, we recognize that this is moving by 1, which is good. We know that 7 minus 3 is 4, 11 minus 7 is 4, 15 minus 11 is 4. That means that m is 4. Once you identify m, you want to write out the rule generating formula. And again, pick one point. I always typically pick the top point. I don't need anything else, just like we did on the other one. Just pick out the top. It's easier to do. In this case, y is 3. M, as we found out, is 4. X is 1 plus b. And then we solve. 3 equals 4 plus b. Subtract your 4, you get negative 1 for b. And so remember, I said that the rule is found by plugging m and m and b back in. So m is 4, so put 4x, and then b is negative 1, so put minus 1. And again, just to verify, if you look at your calculator, 4 parentheses 1 minus 1 equals 3, which is good. If you plug in 2, 4 parentheses 2 minus 1 equals 7, which is what we want. 4 parentheses 3 minus 1 equals 11, which is what we want. And 4 parentheses 4 minus 1 equals 15, which is also what we want. So again, what that pattern generator does, or rule generator does, is it gives me everything. I can go negative 1,000, I can go positive 100, and find out exactly what the value of y and x that goes with each other. And that's what it's there for. Alright. Same thing here, write a rule to represent this function here. Again, recognize that your x's go 0, 1, 2, 3. That's the first thing you have to analyze is, are my x's moving by 1? As long as that's the case, now we go ahead and do our subtraction. Remember, we do second minus first, so negative 1 minus negative 7. That's what's going to be tough. Making sure you get the answer of 6. And then 5 minus negative 1. Again, calculator programming is important. That also gives me a 6. And then 11 minus 5, we know to be 6, which means that m is 6. We then go to our rule generator, so y equals mx plus b. We pick one ordered pair. Again, I usually just pick the first because it's easier to work with. In this case, remember, y is second, so negative 7 equals 6, which is m, x, which is 0, plus b. Negative 7 is 0 plus b, which means if 0 is there, then negative 7 is your value of b. And again, once you get those two pieces of information, you are not finished until you plug m and b back into that generator. So you have to put your 6x and your minus 7, which is my rule. And again, just to verify your rule, you can always do this. 6 parentheses 0 minus 7, of course, is negative 7. 6 parentheses 1 minus 7 gives me a negative 1, which is what I'm looking for. 6 parentheses 2 minus 7 gives me 5, which is what I'm looking for. 6 parentheses 3 minus 7 gives me 11, which is also what I'm looking for. The advice I give you is that if you're taking a multiple choice test and you don't remember how to generate the rule, just plug in the x and make sure that it matches all your y's, because that's going to tell you that that's the actual rule for it. Final thought, you're going to experience frustration. I like to tell my when I coached, I like to tell my athletes this: you're either going to experience frustration during your preparation, or you're going to experience frustration during your performance. This homework is not going to be easy for everyone. It doesn't mean you can't get through it. It just means that if you run away from your the homework portion of it, then when you take your quiz at the end of the week, you're going to do badly and you're going to be frustrated with the grade you get. So please make sure you approach it as dealing with the frustration now, so that when when Thursday comes up, that you're okay with it, and that at least you're better with it and you're able to do what you need to do. So again, hopefully you choose to fight right now, because if you don't fight right now, it is going to catch up with you on Thursday. Also, make sure you understand that your Ed Puzzle grade is now a portion of your grade book. So for those of you who are not finishing all the questions and answering them, you're getting zeros for those assignments, so you might want to make sure you go back and fix those. If you miss a day, make sure you go back and watch those, because what I'm looking at is I look at the grade book. If you don't have a grade there, I put a 0 in the book, and that will affect you, because remember, that is the 10% portion of your grade, not the 5% portion that a lot of you view as homework. So again, be sure to ask for assistance. Math XL is waiting for you, so good luck.